Have you ever been so stuck on needing to make a decision and you're just so lost on how to choose what it is you should do? So I recently had a decision I needed to make, and I realized afterwards that, you know what, this is probably something that could help a lot of people. So I'm going to break down with you how it is I went through it and really look to help guide you in terms of being able to make decisions that you want. But before we even do that, we have to understand maybe you don't even know what decisions are possible. You see, it might be something like, I don't know what career to choose, or I don't know who to marry. And guess what? Those careers or that person might not be even in your life yet. What we have to start to realize is that we have to be able to put ourselves in a position to understand what is really possible, what are all the options out there. And if we could start to just recognize that maybe right now, the thing that is so clear in front of us might not really be there. And this is exactly what happened to me when it came to my coaching practice. You see, throughout my 20s, I was trying to figure out what it is I wanted to be doing. I was trying to decide on a specific career because I knew I needed to put time into it. And I was working in education, helping people out, doing some real estate on the side, all things that interested me, but I didn't know how it was all going to line up. And then it happened that one night where I was actually interviewing somebody for a podcast I used to run. And I found out this idea of coaching, that he was a coach and he told me his story. And what was interesting is that his whole story of his life lined up to him becoming a coach. And I realized that we were so similar in so many different ways. And it got me set on my path to coaching. But I didn't find that out until I was in my 30s. And on the one hand, it's frustrating that it took me to my 30s to get to. But on the other hand, it wasn't even an option. It wasn't something I even knew about. It's not like I knew about real estate or I knew about crypto or something else. So understanding that we have to constantly be putting ourselves in the position to find out what those things might be, that could be helping us in terms of getting to the place where we can then make an educated decision. Now, once we have the decision on the table, we have to realize that there's different levels of decision making. You see, on the low end, there could be such a small decision that needs to be made in terms of what is it I want to have for dinner tonight? And on the high end, it's maybe who I want to marry, or do I want to have kids or whatnot? But understanding that those two decisions are very, very different. I mean, hopefully they're very, very different. And we have to approach them very differently. Because how many of us get so bogged down with the fact that we don't know what we want for dinner, and we spend, could be hours trying to just make this thing up in terms of being able to just decide on what it is we're going to want. And maybe you're like me, where you go into the refrigerator and you open it up, don't see anything, you close it, and then you open it up again a second later, hoping that it magically just all shifted around. And what we have to realize is that the fact that there are different levels of decision, we have to try to figure out what is it that we can start to use in our own lives. And the way that I like to help people with this is to understand when it comes to the smaller decisions, we have to realize is that we have to try to figure out what it is that we need and then make the decision. And the way I define a small decision is if I want to look back in 6 weeks from now and it's not going to be something that I'm going to even remember. Think about it. If I can ask you what you had for dinner 6 weeks ago, would you be able to remember? And if the answer is no, then it is a small decision and it's not going to matter. And all we have to try to do is sometimes in those moments, just decide, because we waste so much energy on those decisions. We don't give ourselves an opportunity to make the big decisions, the ones that really matter. Now, when it comes to the bigger decisions, we have to understand what's really going on here. When you say that you're somebody who's having a hard time making decisions, we have to realize that something over here might be missing or something might be happening to us. And the first thing that most people really blame is information. I have a lack of information. And what we have to realize is that sometimes it's the lack of information, and sometimes we might not actually know until we're in it. We don't have to be 100% certain, but we do have to be 100% committed. And what I mean by that is that you have to have the ability to recognize that right now, based on the decisions that I have in front of me, I might only be able to get to a 70% approval rate in terms of being able to make this decision, because the other 30% I won't ever know till I actually try it. Think about it. If you're going to a restaurant that you've never been to before, you're going because maybe you heard the hype, maybe your friends told you it was a good decision to make, but you won't know till you actually experience it. It is so important for us to be able to just recognize that idea that, you know what, sometimes we're not supposed to be 100% in terms of all the knowledge that we're going to need in order to make a decision. And when I realized that, it helped me so much because I kept thinking I was missing something. And it's not about missing something, because that gap is okay, because it's only on the other side of deciding. And that's why it's also really important to put into perspective the decision that you're making. There are probably only going to be a handful of decisions within our lives that are going to really make a big difference, that could change our lives like crazy. Think about it. Even getting married to somebody, technically you can get divorced. Even moving to a different state, you have the ability to move again. So when it comes to those decisions that it might be big decisions but aren't life-changing decisions, when it comes down to it, we have to realize realized that, you know what, let's understand the information that we need until a certain point, but then once we have that information, let's just make the decision. The next thing that really takes people back in terms of what it is they need to do in order to make a decision is fear. Most of the time, it's fear of failure that, you know what, I might do this thing and it might not work out. And I was recently speaking to somebody who decided to take action and decided to run ads for their business. It was a big deal for them. And what happened though is that their ads didn't go as well as they thought they should have. And they actually bombed. They spent a lot of money in terms of spending ads for something that he was so excited and so hopeful for. But when he started running ads the second time, he reached out to me and he told me that he wanted to congratulate me in terms of me running my ads. And he told me his scenario where he didn't really make so much, where he ended up losing a lot of money the first time around, but he's giving it a go a second time around. And I told him, you don't understand how powerful that is. Out of everyone in the world who wants to be able to run ads, what percentage of those people actually take the action? And it's probably a really small percentage. And then out of those people, how many of them have a bad first experience but then never do it again? And that's an even smaller number. And the fact that he continued to take action and to get the feedback and to tweak it, that is the most important thing. When it comes to your decision that you're going to be making, understand that yes, you are making a decision and right now it might be a big deal, but in 5 years from now, that one decision is going to help you get to the next place and the next place and the next place. And where most people get caught up is that they don't make a decision. They get stuck in indecision. And as Jim Rohn says, indecision is the thief of opportunity because it doesn't allow you to get to the places that you want to get to. We think that there has to be some idea that everybody has to have it all figured out, but guess what? That's not the case. If we could slowly work on ourselves to be able to become the type of people and be able to make the decisions, we'll be able to get from one room to the next room to the next room. And when we look back, we're going to see how everything really just made sense. So recognizing that our fear might be the thing that's holding us back. We might hide it behind the fact that we don't have information, but it really just might be a fear. And if that's the case, you have to start to really work on yourself to see what is going on. What is that fear? And is the fear rational? A lot of times it's not. Maybe you heard something that happened to somebody else, or maybe you're using a certain experience that happened in one time in your life and you're applying it to this time as well. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And the third thing that might be holding you back is time. You might say, you know what, this is just not the right time. And you know what, practically it might not be the right time. But on the other hand, is there ever going to be a better time to be doing it? And we need to be realistic with ourselves and see how it is we can start to put ourselves in a position to be able to make the decision that we want to be making. We can't keep tricking ourselves, and we could just be honest with who we truly are and what's really going on. That will just be able to help us see what is really blinding us and what we have to do to move forward. And the final tip I want to share with you that you need to do in order to make decisions is to get people around you who support you, who see your dreams, who see your goals. Because if you have a specific decision that you need to be making and it's a bigger decision, getting that support can be tremendous. For me personally, having the coaches in my life that I can speak to and reach out to when I know I'm going through something, not to give me the answer, but to help flesh it out of me, to understand what is really missing from the equation, can really help you to be able to move forward to make the decisions that you know you want to and need to be making. Just remember, more important than what you decide is that you decide. Look to make a decision and really move forward onto the next phase and realize that yes, right now it might be a big deal, but in the big scheme of things, in the scheme of your life, it's going to be a small decision that's only going to get you to your next decision, which will get you to your next and your next and your next. And if you're the type of person who keeps getting let down by other people, make sure to take a look at this next video where we talk about different strategies that you can start to use to not feel so down.